Hello, and welcome back to Gameumentary. My name is Nick Calandra, and I'm the content director. It has been quite a while since we've done a developer interview, but we're looking to bring them back as a regular occurrence on the Gameumentary channel. We put them on hold for a while as we wanted to figure out a way to make them a bit more fun to watch, as the editing on the past developer interviews has been pretty light, and we often have to reuse footage over and over again because we often talk about new games that are in development. Going forward, our developer interviews will be in a similar format to what you're about to watch today. When we can, they'll include some extra B-roll to feel a bit more high quality, but typically the focus of these videos will be the interview, unless we have new footage to share with you, like today. For our first developer interview utilizing this new format, I talked to Dan Vaterland of Fall Damage Studios. The studio just announced their first title called Batalj, an innovative and fast-paced turn-based strategy game currently in development for the PC. You'll get to see the game in action in this interview with some lightly edited footage from their pre-alpha build of the game. Please enjoy the interview, and if you like this new format, please let us know.
My name is Dan Vaderlind, and I am the COO and co-founder of Fall Damage Studios, and we are currently working on our first game called Batalj.
Awesome. Alright, so Dan, give me a little bit of a rundown of like your history in game development, because I know you came from DICE first.
I started at DICE, what was that? I don't really, actually can't say the year, but I worked there for almost 5 years, and then now I've been with Fall Damage for 2 years, so that makes it 7, I guess. I started DICE coming from e-commerce. I actually started as an HR position, and I absolutely hated it. And then at some point during the summer, I was already looking for a job, and I was feeling really bad because I had started a game company, which was like a dream I had since I was a boy. And then I walked down to the game development floor where they currently were working on Battlefield 4. And I said, hey, right now I have quite a little to do. It's summer and everyone is on vacation, so if there's any way I can help out, please let me. And then the executive producer of Battlefield 4, which at that time was Patrik Bach, who later became the GM and right now is heading Ubisoft Stockholm, he told me, yeah, sure, come in and join us here in the leads room. And then I helped out there for 2 weeks until I was asked to join production instead of working at the HR part of DICE. And that's where I would say I started my career in the game development. So I started at Battlefield 4. I was responsible for the Commander mode app, which was released on Android and iPads. And then after that I helped out a bit on Battlefield Hardline, which was mainly produced in the US. And then after that, it was Star Wars Battlefront 1 and then Battlefield 1. And that was my last gig before leaving DICE. In like summer 2016, one of the veterans that had worked at DICE for 12 or 14 years, he approached me and said, "Hey, I like the way you work. Maybe you want to join us on this thing." And it was him and another guy, and that guy was actually one of the original DICE founders, Marcus Nyström. So it was Anders and Marcus who approached me and asked me if I wanted to join them to start a new venture. And I mean, I loved it at DICE, but that was an opportunity that I would never say no to, and I said yes. And then we found our fourth guy, Mikael, and in December of 2016, that's when we all left DICE and started Fall Damage.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, it actually, man, I think you guys joined Twitter quite a while ago before you even announced the studio. I remember seeing something about Fall Damage, or just that the people that worked at DICE were making a new studio. Loved the Battlefield game, so I immediately paid attention to that.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, it just you actually surprised me this past week, because I was totally thinking they're probably making some first-person shooter, and then now you're not. So why don't you explain to me what exactly you're making now?
Yeah, sure. So a bit of a background. I mean, we have a lot of experience of making shooters. I mean, I only worked 6 years in game development, but the other guys, that's 12, 14, and 24 years of game development. And we know what it takes to make a good shooter, and that's not a 4-man startup. Well, now we're 14, but still, if you want to compete against the CODs and the Battlefields, you have to be a large studio, basically. So we know what it takes, and we wanted to start off with you could call it a passion project. I mean, we're all board game geeks, and we thought that maybe we could do a bit of a niche product, but something that we would love to play, and hopefully a lot more people. So with that said, we decided to make a turn-based strategy game, but focus solely on multiplayer.
For those that maybe haven't heard of this game before, or just now hearing about it, please pronounce the title for me.
It's Batalj. In Swedish, it's an old school word for battle, you could say, or skirmish.
Cool. So you're actually, I didn't know this beforehand either, that you're making it a completely multiplayer focused experience.
There are some things to it. So when we started out to design this game, we knew we wanted multiplayer, and then we of course would explore single player possibilities. But during the time of development, we realized that yes, we could definitely do single player, but when you have a certain number of man months to spend on a game, and you come to the conclusion that, well, we can make both a single player experience and a multiplayer experience, but they might not be as good as they could get if we just focused on one. And we knew that multiplayer was like our primary choice. So quite early in development, we decided, hey, multiplayer is the way to go. And when it comes to the game mechanics, that's where the game really shines.
So explain to me what Batalj. I'm never gonna say it right. Batalj.
Yes, correct.
There we go. Just kind of explain to me the premise behind the game. Like, how did you guys come up with the setting, or what's it about?
All right. So you can make a few comparisons, but it's you could say a digital miniature game where you pit your squad against an opponent's squad, and there are a few key features. Where the first one is squad building, and you can compare that to collectible card games like Hearthstone or Magic the Gathering or games like that, where you build a deck offline with a certain theme, and then you name it, hey, this is my favorite deck 1, and then you can make it multiple decks, and once you actually want to play against someone, you pick a deck and you matchmake online. So in our game, you do the equivalent but with units. So you build a squad, you pick a faction, and then you pick a hero. And then with that hero, you can spend 10 points on units. And units available are divided into tier 1 units and tier 2 units. Tier 1 units cost 1 point, and tier 2 units cost 2 points. And you can also have duplicates of the tier 1 units. And that basically means that a squad can consist of anything between 6 and 11 units, depending on how you distribute your points. So a squad with only tier 1 units would basically be a 11 unit squad. So each faction has a unique number of units, or let's say they have unique units, and there's a certain number of units for each faction. There's no this unit A in this faction has its equivalent in the other faction. So every unit is unique, and you could, I guess, say that it's like a MOBA hero light. It has unique abilities, active and passive abilities. So you build this squad offline, save it as this is my squad 1, or this is squad 2, etc. And once you want to play against someone, you pick one squad and you matchmake online. So, and another key feature is simultaneous turns.
Yeah, that's what I was going to ask about. That was interesting, and like for somebody like me that doesn't have time to sit there through hours of one match, like that made it a lot quicker, and that intrigued me right away.
Yeah, right. So strategy games historically you really needed to commit when it comes to time, or you would play a strategy game where maybe the game developer had to sacrifice depth. I mean, if you play, let's say, Civilization Online, that's a game for days. And if you take just chess as an example, and you play chess against someone, so you will make a move, and then it's your opponent's turn. And right there, you have downtime. Sure, you can strategize, about your general approach towards your opponent with everything you have on board, but basically you have to wait to make an action until your opponent has done his action. So all of that downtime creates game length, right? And let's say that you instead move all of your units in your turn, and the same goes for the opponent. So instead of chess 1 by 1, you move all of your units. So if we would do the traditional your turn, my turn, you would still have this huge upside if you are the first player to be able to attack your opponent. So basically, okay, I come into attack range with all my units, and you can't do anything about it, and I can just shoot away, and you won't be able to react because it's not your turn. So that's the downside of moving all units at once for each player. And also you have this downtime. And when it comes to our game, if we had done the traditional your turn, my turn, our games would be I don't know, an hour long or maybe no more. So instead we have a solution to what we call simultaneous terms, where both players plan all of their unit's actions at the same time. So each round is divided into two phases, the planning phase and the action phase. During the planning phase, both players have 120 seconds to plan all of their units. And in the action phase, all of the units execute their actions sequentially, one after another. And then the order is decided on a few factors. So basically there's a timeline on the top of your screen which will tell you during the planning phase, right, this is the order every action is going to be played out. Regardless of what you tell your unit to do, this is the order, the one you have on top of your screen. And then during the action phase, the orders you have given will be played out in that order on the top of the screen, right? But the actions you give your units, they come with a cost that we call delay. So let's say I have a unit in the beginning of the timeline in this round. And I tell it to, hey, since you are the first in the timeline, you have a perfect opportunity to use this really cool ability that will do a lot of AoE damage on a lot of the enemy units. And you have the upside of being quite early in the timeline, or maybe even first in the timeline, so you know that no other unit will have moved before that unit that you are giving orders to. So basically it's a guaranteed hit. But this ability is also quite costly. It has maybe 5 in delay. So you schedule that, and then you give all your units different types of actions, and then everything is played out. Yes, you hit that really cool AoE, and you do a lot of damage to your opponent's units, and everything is played out sequentially, one after another, and then action phase is over, and then you head into the planning phase of the next round. The cost of the actions you have given your units in the last round, that cost will affect how the timeline looks in the next. So because you chose to give that unit an order to do a really cool AoE ability that had 5 in delay, that unit will be moved late in the timeline. So in summary, if you really commit with all your units to a lot of actions, you move them around, etc., you'll see costs for a delay cost for each unit, and if that's high across the board, basically your units will be late in the timeline in the next round, and it will be a swing turn for your opponent. So when you're planning, you have to be mindful of which unit is before me, after me, where will I end up in the next round, and so on.
That's a lot more in depth than I was expecting. So with all that depth, is like esports kind of a target here for this game?
Yeah, we joked about it the other day, or I guess not joked about it. We talked about it quite early actually in development. We didn't want to set out to make an esports title. We're making a really good turn-based strategy game that have a possibility to be competitive. Then it's not up to us that it actually becomes an esport title. Sure, that would be great, because that essentially means that we have a ton of players, right? But we wanted it to be quite competitive in the way you play, and that's why we don't have any chance to hit or chance to miss or anything like that. You should be able to orchestrate a really cool round with your units and have made thought through decisions and see it execute beautifully. So there's no RNG in that sense.
So in line with like kind of the finding an audience for this game, you want it to be competitive, but also like very high strategic depth to it and all that. Do you ever worry about finding an audience for a game like this, especially with how competitive the multiplayer market is right now? Or do you think you guys are kind of carving your own niche with this?
I mean, there is a huge audience for strategy games, but with that said, I mean, you never know. I don't know how many players we will have. We hope to have many. And when it comes to facing an opponent on your level, we will have elo matchmaking. So basically, we will matchmake you against someone who is as good as you.
How long has it taken you guys to like get it right? A lot of strategy games are unbalanced at launch and all that kind of stuff. And this seems like one where that could easily be the case if you didn't spend enough time like just testing it and seeing
sure.
what works.
Yes, I mean absolutely, and I mean we've done a lot of testing. But being an indie studio, we can't hire an army of QA and ask them, hey, please help us balance this game. We've done our best to balance it, but I think the most important thing is to be able to support the game well when it goes live. And we've done several, what do you call it? We've made several decisions when it comes to building the game, so we can easily adjust, damage numbers and so on. And once the game goes live, we will be quick on patching, the game, and there's a lot of analytics to it, so we can actually see if there is any certain squad who has a win percentage that is above all else, and that players feel that they have to play with that squad type or they will lose. So, we have to be quick on our feet to basically patch the game and keep it as balanced as we can.
And you guys are entering early access after December?
I don't think we will go into early access. We will do some sort of a beta in December, most likely a closed one, and then after that I'm not really sure yet.
So do you guys have like continued content plans for?
Yes, definitely. I mean, everything post launch is possible. If this game gets picked up and gets a steady player base, we are hopeful that we will add more to it in many ways after launch.
And I'm assuming you're targeting PC first with consoles later, or are you trying to hit all three at the same time?
We are targeting PC first and consoles later, but that's also we have to weigh in the factor of if we have a player base or not. But hopefully, absolutely we will, and then there's nothing stopping us to actually port it to maybe even mobile. Although there is a huge challenge when it comes to navigation and the UI. But if shooters can do it, so should we.
Well, it seems like a game that would work very well on the Switch.
Yes, definitely. I mean, we love our Switches in the office, and that would be pretty cool to have it on the Switch too.
Alrighty. Is there anything else you'd like to let me know about Batalj before? I said it right the first time.
Yeah, now well, you did well. I know that I think our challenge is to onboard players. The simultaneous turns and how everything works when it comes to rounds, the planning phase and the action phase, that takes a bit of learning, and you need maybe 1 or 2 or 3 games to understand it. We have a tutorial. It's in its very early implementation, but it will get better. But then again, you also have all these units with unique abilities, both active and passive, and they have health values, armor values, and so on. And that goes for, I guess, many other games where you need to learn about heroes and how they work. So we have that same challenge too, on top of the one that I previously mentioned. So I guess there's a bit of a learning curve. We'll just have to trust that others help us out to explain the game as well as we do it in the game.
Yeah, from first glance, it doesn't look that complicated, and then you explained it, and I'm like, oh.
No, but I mean, I remember when we had people that came over to the studio, and they sat beside me, and I was like, all right, so this is the game. This is squad building. Every unit is unique. We hope the players will, play around with the synergies and see, like, oh, this is an equivalent of a rush squad, and this is a control squad, and so on. And then we jump into the game, and they start playing, and I explain the rules, and they're like, okay, I get it. And then maybe they finish 1 game or 2 games, and then after that there's like this epiphany where they see, oh, all right, I get it. I have to think about the timeline. Who is before me? All right, maybe I shouldn't attack that unit who's before me. I should attack that unit who's after me, because he will still be standing on that hex, and he wouldn't have his action yet. So you see this, like they open a door and see all of these possibilities, and it's quite nice to see. I think we've succeeded in quick matches. So our matches are about 20 minutes, and we haven't sacrificed strategic depth. So there's a lot of strategy in our game, but there's still a lot to it.
Awesome. Yeah, that has me interested. It's hard to sometimes commit to sitting through 1 hour to 2 hours of one match. So interested to see how this game works out for you guys.
Yeah, happy to hear it.
All right, well, thank you for your time, Dan, and looking forward to seeing more about Batalj, a game that I will officially say the name correctly twice in this interview.
Thank you so much for having me.